Umrah, al-Umrah, and a step-to-step guide بإذن on how to perform al-Umrah. So, of course, I want to keep it short as usual. I think I'll try to leave some space for Q&A. Um, so I'll try to not give too much detail, but actually the good news is al-Umrah is not as difficult as al-Hajj in terms of the amount of worships or the amount of rituals. So it's actually a bit more simple. And most of what we're going to mention are sunan in a step-to-step guide. So the most important aspects of of Umrah, which are the pillars, there are not many. So that's why we're going to do a recap at the end. But most are going to be either wajibat or sunan. So al-Umrah, as many of you may know, is what we call the minor pilgrimage. So we have al-Hajj, the major pilgrimage, which is obligatory to perform once in a lifetime. And then you have al-Umrah, which is the minor pilgrimage, which many scholars consider as well is obligatory to perform once in a lifetime. And there's a khilaf on the ruling of al-Umrah, but in general, we should all try to at least do it once. And if you have one trip for Hajj in your entire life to Mecca, then you should seriously consider doing Hajj and Umrah at the same time, whether a mutamattir or whether doing tamattu or qiran. These are the different types of Hajj that you can do, which has an Umrah attached to it in some sense. So it's possible to have one trip and do Hajj and Umrah in one trip. But everybody should at least try to do it once in their lifetime. So Al-Umrah, the minor pilgrimage, can be done at any time, unlike Al-Hajj. Al-Hajj is only for a specific time period, which is in the month of Dhul Hijjah, and can be started, to a certain degree earlier than that, but actually can be started starting in Shawwal at the end of Ramadan. So that's like a total of 3 months, but the real rituals go down in Dhul Hijjah. So you can see here how the time or the time period is limited. As for an Umrah, there is no limited time period religiously. So you can do it any time throughout the year. So I think that's clear, inshallah. So what to expect when doing Umrah? This will depend on how you're going to do Umrah. For example, in my case, I don't have much experience. I've never taken a plane to go to Umrah. Or I've never done the Umrah starting from a foreign country. So to be honest, I don't have that much experience. Like on the flying aspect and how that works. People tell me, I've heard people speak about it, but I personally have never done it because every time I've done the Umrah, I was already in Saudi Arabia, in Medina, or elsewhere. And obviously, in that case, you don't need to take the plane. So most of my Umrahs, either I did by bus or by car. So it's a little bit different, but the principles are the same. So keep in mind the principles, and then inshallah we'll discuss on the different types of travels that people do in order to do Umrah. So the important aspect of Umrah for the beginning that you need to take into account is how you will do the Ihram and where. So the Ihram is what we call the state of Ihram, the state of sacredness, or the state of sacrality, which means that you are in a special state of worship, in which certain things are prohibited that are usually not prohibited, certain extra things. And this state is specifically for rituals such as the ones of Hajj and Umrah. And Al-Ihram is done from a miqat. A miqat is a spot or an area from which you have to do the ihram. And of course, the ihram, what do we mean by ihram exactly? Ihram is mainly an intention. Meaning, okay, I know that now I passed this area. I know that now I must enter into this state if I want to do Umrah or Hajj. And now I've made that intention that I'm going to do Umrah. And now certain things are prohibited for me, as we will see. So this is what you have to take into account. So if you're already in Saudi Arabia, which was my case, it's not too difficult because there are 5 what we call mawaqit, 5 miqats. And if you take the bus will stop by it in general, or at least will pass by it. So you can see the miqat and do the intention and do the ihram. Or you can go by car and you can stop there. There's a masjid there, for example, the miqat of Medina. It's on the outskirts of Medina. You can stop there with the car. Even with bus, there's a parking lot. There's a masjid, and so on and so forth. The problem here is if you take the plane. It's not really a problem. It's just that you won't be passing by the miqat in the conventional way. Let's put it that way. You'll be passing the miqat overhead. And the miqat, there are 5 mawaqit, 5 zones or 5 areas in which at that moment, and they all circle Mecca, which at that moment you have to, if you want to do the rituals, you have to do ihram from that moment. If you do the ihram before, meaning the intention before, it won't count. And if you do it after, then it may count, but there are some consequences there. Okay, as we will speak about, inshallah. So this is what you have to figure out. The easy part is, if you take the plane, usually, and I've never experienced this, but this is what people tell me, usually the airline or the pilot, they will let you know. So you need to be ready beforehand, okay, to enter the state of ihram. So you can't have anything that is prohibited. For example, you can't have, as we will see, regular clothing. You need to have what is usually people call it an ihram. What it really is a nizar and a rida, which means 2 drapes or 2 towels that cover basically your upper body and your lower body. So you wrap yourself in those. This is what you have to do. And if you wear regular clothing when entering ihram, the ihram basically will not be valid because this is from the prohibitions of ihram. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So if you take the plane, they'll let you know usually. The pilot will tell you, look, we're passing the miqat now. Make your intention now. Make sure you're wearing the correct clothing now, and so on and so forth. Make sure you know that starting from now, you have certain prohibitions. If you take the car, the train, all of that is clear. Usually everything is set up for you to pass by the miqat, or for the people that are bringing you to tell you, okay, we're passing the miqat now, so you need to do what you need to do. But just because people are trained to tell you that, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware. In fact, there have been times where people make mistakes and people forget, and times where the pilot forgot. So you just need to be aware and conscious of what you're supposed to do, and inshallah things will be fine. So that's the first aspect to take into account. So depending on how you do your Umrah, whether you are already in Saudi Arabia for whatever reason, and you stop at a local miqat, by car or train and so on, or you take the plane, and the airline or the pilot will let you know. Whatever the case may be, the principle is the same. Once you pass the miqat, you are in a state of ihram. You have made that intention. Certain prohibitions now apply to you. Before that, it is mustahab to do what? To wash yourself, to do ghusl. Okay, to wash yourself and clean yourself, and to wear perfume before doing the ihram. Because once you're in ihram, you can't do that anymore. Those are from the prohibitions. Not washing yourself, but the perfume part. So that's what you have to take into account. So if you're able to do that at the miqat, for example, they have showers to do ghusl. If you're able to do that, that's great. That's recommended. If not, then it's not an issue. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So make sure to wear your what we call ihram nowadays. Culturally, it's known. They say wear your ihram, which are the usually white, the two white drapes or towels, to cover yourself. And once you arrive at Mecca, once you arrive in Mecca, and by the way, this is for just let me pause. This is for men, so women can wear regular clothing. Okay, just to be clear. So some of these rules are different for men and women, even though the majority of the rules are the same. There are a few that differ. So, for example, one of those that differ is that women will continue to wear their regular clothing. Now, then, so once you do the ihram, you say in order to enter it, in order to make that intention to enter the state of sacrality, you say labbaik Allahumma labbaik. And then you add what you want to do. So if you're doing Umrah, for example, then you'll have to add that and say labbaik umratan or Allahumma labbaik umratan, labbaik Allahumma labbaik umratan, things like that. Which means labbaik Allahumma labbaik means I am at your service, O Allah. And if you add Umrah, then I am at your service by doing an Umrah. And in other instances, you can say labbaik Allahumma labbaik hajjan or hajjatan, so to do Hajj. But in the case of Umrah, it's clear. So once you do that, it is sunnah at that moment. So you're now in ihram. You have passed the miqat, whether you're in the plane or on the ground. It's sunnah at this point to do what we call the talbiyah, which is a special type of dhikr, which is labbaik Allahumma labbaik. لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. So you should do this. This is mustahab, recommended. To do this as much as possible until you reach the Kaaba, Mecca. Once you reach Mecca, you see the Kaaba, you enter the masjid of the sacred masjid, Masjid al-Haram. And the sunnah is to start with your right foot. And you can even make dua and say, Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. أعوذ بالله العظيم بوجهه الكريم وسلطانه القديم من الشيطان الرجيم اللهم افتح لي أبواب رحمتك. So this is a dua where you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open, to protect you from shaitan and to open up the doors of mercy for you. And this is by entering the masjid. Once you arrive at the Kaaba, you stop the talbiyah and you go to the area where you can see the black stone. And this is where you're going to start one of the major pillars of Umrah, which is at-tawaf, which means circumambulation around the Kaaba 7 times. So you go to the area of the black stone where you can see it. You face the black stone. And you salute the black stone. You can do this from afar. Then it's also sunnah to go and kiss the black stone. But this is only if it's easy for you to do so and that you won't harm another Muslim by doing so. Why do I say this? The reason I say this is because there are so many people and it's so crowded that usually unless like there's maybe COVID time was different, but usually it's almost impossible to nowadays, right, to go to the black stone and kiss it without like basically being in like a major crowd, maybe hitting somebody, whether intentionally or not. It's very complicated. In fact, I've done Umrah like a dozen times and I've never kissed the black stone. I've never even touched it. The reason for that is because every single time I knew, well, if I'm gonna do that, there's so much crowd around it that I'm gonna get elbowed, or I might elbow somebody just to pass. And plus, there's free mixing, which of course the free mixing in Mecca is a little bit more relaxed because there's really nothing much you can do about it. And this we can find in the ancient books of the ulama. Like the rules regarding Mecca and free mixing, or not Mecca, but the Kaaba specifically, where there are so many people, a little bit more relaxed than anywhere else due to the context. But still, like, there's a lot of women as well that you probably touch and they'll touch you. Like, it's really difficult nowadays. So it's not a big deal if you don't kiss it. It's just the sunnah. If you're able to do so, it's better. If not, then it's no big deal. When you salute to the black stone, you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and you start the tawaf. And so you have to count 7 times. So each time you see the black stone, you will know how many times you have done you have basically walked around the Kaaba. In tawaf, it is sunnah to do dua. Just take a principle. In the entire Umrah, it's sunnah to do dua, to do dhikr, to recite Quran. This in general is sunnah. But at particular moments, there are certain du'as that are even more specific or specifically sunnah, such as, for example, in tawaf, the du'a رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Oh Allah, give us in the dunya good and in the akhirah good, and protect us from the punishment of the fire. Why is this particularly sunnah? Because it was established or confirmed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also in tawaf, from the sunan is to walk fast for the first 3 rounds. So there are 7 rounds. For the first 3 rounds, you can walk fast, and this is a sunnah, but only do so as long as you're able to do so without harming anybody else. Maybe you walk fast and there's old people in front of you or something like this. If you fear that you harm a Muslim, then you shouldn't do it. But if you can, then it's a sunnah to do so. From the sunnah as well is to uncover your left uncover your left arm. Okay, this for men, of course. Or sorry, not your left arm. Sorry, your right arm. So what you should do is you have the Kaaba on your left. When you walk around the Kaaba, you should have the Kaaba on your left, and from the sunan is to uncover your right arm and put your top garment under your armpit. Now, it's also, many scholars consider it obligatory to have wudu, or basically to be in a state of tahara during tawaf. But there's a difference of opinion. Some scholars, such as the Hanafis and Ibn Taymiyyah, they say that this is not a condition of tawaf. But the majority of the scholars, they say that it is a condition. So once that's done, you've done the 7 rounds. You finish the last round by saluting once again the black stone, and kissing it if you are able to do so. And after that, you go to what we call Maqam Ibrahim, which is right next to the Kaaba. The Maqam Ibrahim is what we call the station of Ibrahim. In fact, at the station of Ibrahim, they have like a transparent glass. This is like next to the Kaaba. And in that transparent glass, you can see the footprint that was preserved of Ibrahim alayhi salam, or at least this is what they say. And here in front of the Maqam Ibrahim, in front of the station of Ibrahim, here it's sunnah to pray 2 rak'at. And if you can do so in front of the station of Ibrahim, it's good. If not, you can pray them anywhere in the haram, or anywhere in the Masjid al-Haram. But if you can do so at the station of Ibrahim, then that is the stronger sunnah, or that is the sunnah. And it's not a big deal. People will be passing in front of you. There's so much people. And for men as well, women might pass in front of them and these type of things. This does not affect your prayer, as we mentioned, due to Mecca having specific things based on the context. So don't worry about that part. Just focus on your prayer. In this prayer, it's sunnah to pray with قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ in the first rak'ah and قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ in the second rak'ah. Of course, if you pray with other surahs, then no problem. After that, you move from the station Ibrahim to As-Safa wal Marwa, which are the two hills right next to the Kaaba, where you will do what we call a sa'i. And once you see Safa is the first mount that you, if I remember correctly, Safa is the first mount that you see, or that you're going to start from. It's recommended, it's sunnah to recite the ayah in Safa wal Marwata min sha'airillah in Surah Al-Baqarah 158. Then here, from Safa, you can start the sa'i, and you go to Al-Marwa, which is the other hill. So it's like you have to do 7 back and forth 7 times, and this is the, let's say, the struggles and the efforts of Hajar alayhi salam. Hajar is the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam and the mother of Ismail. And basically, what happened is when Ibrahim went on prophetic mission, she was left in the desert without any water, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened up a source for her, a source of water, which is Zamzam water. And the story goes that she thought the spring was so like powerful, she thought it was going to flood all of Mecca. So she said, Zam, stop. And, that's when the basically the flowing stopped. But still, there is enough water and enough barakah. Even nowadays, it's actually pretty miraculous to have a source like this in the middle of the desert. There's still enough water and to like basically like quench the thirst of all of Mecca and Medina, pretty much. It's very impressive the amount of Zamzam water there is. This is clearly barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And basically, she was going back and forth from Safa and Marwa because she had a crying baby, Ismail. And she would bring water to him, back and forth from the source all the way to Ismail. So to commemorate her actions, we do this. We do the same thing basically between Safa and Marwa. When you're at Safa and at Al-Marwa, whenever you reach one of the two hills, it's mustahab to do a dua and a dhikr. So you face the Qibla and you say, La ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير لا إله إلا الله وحده أنجز وعده نصر عبده وهزم الأحزاب وحده. This is the dhikr. And then it's sunnah here to do any dua that you wish. And then you say the dhikr another time, and then you make dua again. And then you say the dhikr a third time, one last time. So the idea here is to say that dhikr 3 times. And in between you can make dua. It's not obligatory, of course, it's just sunnah. It's also mustahab for men to run at some point between Safa and Marwa. There are lights, a green light at the top to show you where it is mustahab to run. It's only a small part of between Safa and Marwa. And this is not recommended for women. So this is from the sunnah as well. If you don't do it, it's not a big deal. But of course, if you can do it, then that's much better. The idea behind Umrah is to get as much reward as possible. That's pretty much it. So a sa'i is another huge pillar of al-Umrah. Once you finish a sa'i, so you've done that 7 times, back and forth between Safa and Marwa. And you've done these, invocations, dua. After that, the last part remains, which is to cut or trim your hair. So there are once you leave the Safa and Marwa area, there are barbers all over the place that will help you finish your last ritual, which is to cut or trim your hair. And obviously, it is known that cutting the hair or shaving the hair rather. Okay, so to shave completely, this is the stronger sunnah and more rewarding, but it is allowed to also trim the hair without shaving it completely. Now, and for women, there is no shaving of the hair, just trimming. And it's a special type of trimming. It's only a small part of her hair, which you can't see much of. So it's more like symbolical. It's more like a symbology behind it. It's not, it's not really supposed to. You're not really supposed to see much of a difference here. Once this has been done, you have finished your Umrah, and you are officially not as in a state of ihram anymore. Meaning that the regular things that were halal for you before ihram are halal for you once again. Now, as for the things that are not allowed to do during ihram, okay, so it's important to understand, and also, I have a seminar. I've done a seminar on Hajj where I explain a lot of this. Just put in Shaykh Eissa Abu Noor Hajj on YouTube. So I don't want to spend too much time on this here. But there's a list of prohibitions during ihram, so this goes for Hajj as well. So I'll make a list here. Number 1, clipping the nails. Number 2, trimming or plucking hair. Number 3, applying perfumes or scents. Number 4, flirting and flirtatious behavior and intercourse. Number 5, covering the face. This is for women. And number 6, stitched clothing. This is for men. Number 7, covering the head for men as well. This is not the case for women. Number 8, hunting. And we can add to this as well, like maybe number 9, contracting a marriage for oneself or somebody else. And number 10, cutting a tree that is indigenous to the Haram of Mecca. So these are the things that you're not supposed to do in ihram. And if you do any of them, some of them if you do unintentionally, then there is no expiation. But others, if you do intentionally or unintentionally, actually, there is expiation. And what else could we mention here regarding the prohibitions? Well, actually, as well, there's the issue of wajibat and pillars and obligations. So we'll get to that, inshallah, right now before the Q&A. And one last thing I'll mention, some may ask, what is the ruling on tawaf and speaking during it? So are we allowed to speak or not? There's a specific hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding this. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam likens tawaf to salat. And he says in the hadith, famous hadith of Ibn Abbas, الطواف حول البيت مثل الصلاة إلا أنكم تتكلمون فيه فمن تكلم فيه فلا يتكلمن إلا بخير. So the Prophet said, tawaf is similar to prayer except that you speak in it. So whoever speaks in it, he should only speak khair, speak with goodness. So it's allowed to speak in tawaf. You don't only have to make dua. And you'll find many of the Salaf, they used to speak during tawaf, but they only used to do, have good conversations. So it's narrated, for example, that Sa'id ibn Jubair, one of the tabi'een, he used to do tawaf and speak to his companions, his friends, at the same time, and he would even give fatwa to them and speak about religious issues. It's also narrated similarly from other Salaf, such as Mujahids, such as Ali ibn Abdullah ibn Abbas, Al-Hussein al-Hassan, Abu Ja'far, and others. But others, some Salaf, they prefer not to speak unless spoken to. The example of this is one of the a salaf called Tawus, one of the tabi'in. So some of his friends used to narrate that he used to do tawaf without speaking. Unless he was spoken to, he would respond. Naam. So as for women who are in nifas or haid, meaning who are in postpartum bleeding, or in haid, which is menses, then they can do all the rites of Umrah except for tawaf. And this is based on the hadith of Aisha. She said, I had menses, so the Prophet ﷺ told me to do all the rituals except for tawaf. Now, that being said, we can quickly have an overview of the most important parts of the Umrah, which are the three pillars. So there are three pillars of Umrah. Number one, al-ihram. So there's a pillar of Umrah, meaning if you miss it, your Umrah won't be valid. So a pillar is anything that you miss that will render the Umrah invalid. Number two is a tawaf. And number three is a sa'i between Safa and Marwa. Those are the three pillars of Umrah. As for the obligations, the wajibat, number one is to do the ihram from the miqat. So if you do the ihram after the miqat, then you have not done the pillar, but you have done the obligation, the wajib. Number two is to wear or is to stop wearing clothing, regular clothing for men. So this is from the obligations. Number three is halq and taqsir, meaning cutting the hair or trimming. So these are the obligations. If you don't do them, okay, so if you don't do a pillar, your your Umrah is not valid. If you don't do a wajib, an obligation, there's still a chance it can be valid if you expiate. And how do you expiate? By sacrificing a sheep or a goat. Based on the hadith of Ibn Abbas, من ترك نسكا فعليه دم. Whoever leaves off a ritual, then he has to sacrifice. As for the mustahabbat, meaning the recommendations, then basically everything else is a sunnah or recommendation, and we've mentioned them throughout our journey here, throughout our guide for Umrah. So these are in terms of the rituals. Of course, there are other aspects that I am not well versed in. Some may ask, what's the best deal to do Umrah? Should I go alone? Should I go with a group? All of these things depends on the place, the time. Usually it's cheaper because now it's possible, as far as I understand, to go without an agency or without a travel agency or without a group. You can just go, you, your family, or you and your wife, kids, whatever. Usually that's cheaper, but not necessarily, because you have to know how to maximize basically or minimize rather your costs, and to maximize your or take advantage and maximize your time there. So that's really it. This will all depend. So you can't give a general recommendation on that. So I'll end here, inshallah. I don't have much time for questions. I'll have 10 minutes. Those who have questions, go ahead. You can ask. بإذن الله تعالى أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. تفضلوا. So brother asks, Assalamu alaikum. Someone was asking what the difference between Hajj and Umrah is. So we mentioned this in the beginning. The difference is that Umrah is the minor pilgrimage and Hajj is the major pilgrimage. Hajj, there's only a specific time period where you can perform it. As for Umrah, you can perform it any time. And Hajj is much more extensive, much longer. and has much more rituals than Umrah. Umrah only has really a few rituals compared to Hajj and can be done very quickly. So I've done the rituals of I've done the rituals of Umrah at a few points of my life. I've done them in like a few hours. So if you choose to do them all at once, one after the other, then that's like something that's possible to do them in like 2-3 hours. As for Hajj, it'll take at least a few days because you have to go there and here, and you have to wait till for Arafah and all of this. Now, many other questions? Other questions? Assalamu alaikum. Are women allowed to go on their own? Wa alaikum assalam. This is a good question. Um, Generally, the scholars mention this issue when it comes to Hajj, not Umrah, because they consider Hajj to be like a huge obligation. It's a pillar, unlike Umrah. So some scholars allow for women to go without a mahram, but not alone. Never alone. If the scholars who say she can go without a mahram, they say that she has to still go with a group, a trustworthy group, and this is for safety and security reasons. And don't think that Mecca is super safe, by the way. A lot of people think Mecca is paradise on earth. Everything's perfect. There's no crime. There's nothing. I hate to break it to you, but yes, Mecca is paradise on earth spiritually, but it's still the dunya. It's still part of the dunya, and hence, don't think that it's all like fine and dandy and safe. Like things can happen to you in Mecca if you're not careful. Of course, there are police and they do a good job in general. They catch criminals and stuff like this, but they won't be catching every single criminal. So you also have to do your due diligence. Now, so I don't recommend going alone. I recommend at least, if you can't go with a mahram, at least with a trustworthy Muslim group. And this is the case for travel in general for women. Okay. Other questions? Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to ask the difference in rewards between Hajj and Umrah. Are they the same or one is greater than the other? Alaikum salam. Yes, it's very clear that Hajj is much more rewarding than Umrah because Hajj is a pillar, one of the 5 pillars. As for Umrah, it's not a pillar. It's maybe an obligation according to many scholars, but still not at the level of a pillar. And also, Hajj is the major pilgrimage, whilst Umrah is the minor pilgrimage. So Hajj is more rewarding. The sister asks, can we do as many Umrahs with one trip to Saudi? If done right, this is possible, but especially if you go far, like maybe you go to Medina or you go to somewhere else, and you pass by the miqat again, then this is possible, yes, to do more than one Umrah. But it's also possible to do to re-enter ihram from the miqat of Mecca. There's like it's not really a miqat, but like a point called the Tan'im. But once again, like we should always worry more about the spirit of Islam more than the practice of Islam. The spirit is more important than practice, meaning it's not about practicing more than it is about following the sunnah. Following the sunnah is more important than practicing however we wish. Why do I say that? I say that because it's not really the sunnah to do multiple umrahs in one trip. And the Sahaba never really did this. So they always had this mentality, if you see like the narrations, that you go for umrah. For those who didn't live in Mecca, you go for umrah and you've done your mission. Like it's not really, you shouldn't have this mentality, oh, let me try and do umrah like 5 more times, or like if I can do umrah 500 more times or 1,000,000 more times, like it's going to be great. Like that's not really the point. The point is to do one umrah, and then after that they had the mentality, okay, the mission is accomplished, I hope for the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like this issue of trying to do as many umrahs in one specific trip. I mean, if the trip is long, you go far, you come back, you pass by the miqat, that's different. But some people, what they do, going in and out of Mecca to try and do as many umrahs as possible. Like, I would avoid this. Allah alam. Somebody asks, can a spouse prevent you from going to Hajj with your family? A husband can prevent. A husband can prevent a wife from going to Umrah with her with her family. As for Hajj, then here it is a little bit different because Hajj is a pillar. So it's like preventing her from Salat and so on and so forth. So he cannot prevent her from Hajj, but he can prevent her from Umrah. And even that can be discussed. It depends on, has she done Umrah before, and so on and so forth. But it's more about it's not about the family aspect. So he can prevent her from going with her family, but he can't prevent her from Hajj or Umrah. Depending on the opinions you take and so on and so forth regarding the ruling. No. But yes, if it's for family, of course, this is not nice, or, I mean, it depends on the context or the couple. Everybody has different context. But we're speaking about what are the rights. We're not speaking about what is recommended or what is good. So, no husband, unless he has a good reason, should stop his wife from not only just visiting her family, but doing Umrah or Hajj with her family. But the family issue is different from the actual Hajj or Umrah, which is the worship issue. Sister asks, what's the importance to do Umrah in Ramadan? Umrah in Ramadan, there in the Sunnah, is more rewarding. There's evidence in the Sunnah to indicate that it's more rewarding. Now, Shaykh, is it permissible to stop while doing a sa'i to talk to people who deliberately stop you to beg for money? Yes, it's permissible. It's not prohibited. In sa'i, there's no prohibition of speaking. But again, it's similar to tawaf. Like, you should speak only khair and focus on your worship, and don't use it as a time for like doing other stuff that will not make you focused. Now, somebody asked, I heard you can make tawaf on someone else's behalf. Yes, you can do Umrah and Hajj on someone else's behalf. Of course, there are rules and regulations when it comes to this, but this is possible. So this is not necessarily possible in every case, but yes, it's possible in many cases. Sister asks, can you ignore them until you have finished the sa'i, as this is why you're mostly targeted for this? Or are you sinful if you don't help them, as there seems to be semi-professional individuals in begging? No, you're not sinful. This is not the place for begging, so you can ignore them, of course. Maybe if they give you the salam, you should at least respond to the salam. This is the right of a Muslim, and you assume that they're Muslims, but you don't have to stop and speak. Sister asks, are we allowed to use a deodorant when making ihram? No. Like we mentioned, perfume is prohibited during ihram. If you want to put on perfume, you have to do it before ihram. Once you're in ihram, you can't anymore. We'll end here, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum jami'an. Jazakumullah khairan to all. And I'll see you for the next time or the next class. Hopefully soon, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. آخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.